My life has been collapsing around me like a house of cards. Pieces fluttering down around me like leaves as it gets worse and worse. My mind felt like it was being shredded and mashed into a ball again and again. It started only 3 days ago. After a concert I played at. I play the trumpet for my college's orchestra. I make a decent amount of money from it, but it is mostly for the credit hours. Playing my trumpet during the show was probably the last time I felt any sense of calm or happiness. I noticed him first when I was walking to my car, my trumpet in a case in my hand. It was silence, and most of the audience and musicians already left. I had hung around for a while to talk to some friends and help put chairs and other stuff away. The cold fall air blew leaves across the asphalt. Amber light bathed the lot weakly. There was only one lamp post. As I put my case into the passenger's seat, I was startled by a loud noise. Hitting my head on the roof of the car, I cursed. Looking around the empty lot, I had recognized the sound as a trumpet blaring a note. My eyes landed on a figure under the lamppost, holding a trumpet. I could not get a good look at them to see their face clearly, but I could see that they were wearing a black suit and had dark skin, with a trumpet held to their lips, head bowed. "Good one, asshole," I yelled, a little amusement in my voice. I was much more chill about that sort of thing back then. I did not recognize them. I knew everyone in the band, or at least I thought I did. But I did not give a second thought as I got into my car and drove away. I got home, put my stuff away, got ready for bed, and climbed into bed. It was a long day, and I had an early class the next day. As my eyes closed and I was falling asleep, I was lodged out of sleep by a loud noise. Another trumpet blast. I sat up in bed, looking around. The street light outside my window projected a shadow onto my curtains. No way, that's how I thought. I strode out of bed to the window, reaching out to open them. Another toot of the trumpet met me as I did, bathing me in sterile blue light from the LED street light. But there was nothing. I thought about going outside to look, but I decided against that or calling the police. One seemed dangerous and the other probably wouldn't work. Why would they believe me? I just made sure my doors and windows were locked and went back to sleep. I shot awake again. The trumpeter had played once again. This time, though, it wasn't just a single note. It was a jazz-like scale, and it was louder. I looked around, but my room was empty. I got up and turned the light on. TUOM. Dum-dum. The trumpeter played again, but I can hear it much more clearly. It was outside my bedroom door. I stood still like a statue. I was scared then. Someone was in my apartment. I lived alone in a small one-bedroom apartment with a combined living room and kitchen, with a hallway leading to the bedroom with a bathroom leading off it. I was also stuck, unless I wanted to go out the window. DUOM. Dum-dum. They played again. Louder now. Closer to the door. Close to giving me a headache. "Gee, get out," I yelled, my voice stuttering a bit. "I have a gun." DUOM. Dum-dum. The trumpet's music resounding through the door after my empty threat rang out, like it was a taunt. Knowing I had no gun, or any weapon, I looked around again, and pushed my desk against the door. I made the split-second decision to call the police, telling them someone broke into my house. The intruder with the trumpet kept playing, their music becoming more and more complex. I heard the police knock, announcing themselves, the music stopping in the middle of a scale, right before the officers came in. My heart jumped in relief, but then it plummeted when they approached my door without confronting the intruder. "Sir, are you okay? Can you please open the door?" one asked. I complied, already asking if they saw anyone. They both confirmed they did not, but there was someone here. I felt lightheaded, hysterical. They were playing a trumpet and one of the officers interrupted me. "Excuse me, a trumpet?" They did not hear anything. They looked at me questioningly. I stammered. "They didn't hear any of that." It stopped a sec and they opened the door. And how didn't they see anyone? My eyes lit up as an idea came to my mind. "The operator," I exclaimed. They had to have heard it. The cops looked at each other, one slowly reaching for his radio, an obvious look of reluctance and annoyance on his face as he asked the operator if they heard anything during the call. They said no, just me. I sputtered, uttering dozens of buts. The pair's looks of annoyance were replaced with pity. They probably thought I was either crazy or on something. I just decided to apologize, and they left. I was lucky I didn't get a ticket or something. Whatever the trumpeter was doing, or what they were, apparently no one could hear. Maybe it was a mental thing, too much of my own playing. I decided to try that again. It was late and I still had an early class. The dread of having to wake up early after a late night, almost superseding the dread of the intruder. I couldn't sleep. Periodically it would play through the night or early morning. I decided to just get up early and get to class. I don't know why I did not check myself into a mental hospital or something. I went to brush my teeth, groggily lumbering around my room and bathroom. Bags were under my eyes, which themselves were bloodshot and red. My reflection in the mirror overall was haggard and not pretty. As I went to spit, my head going down towards the sink, a trumpet blared in my ear. With a cry I shot up, spraying toothpaste and saliva all over. In the mirror though, through a crack in the door, was a trumpet sticking out over halfway, a dark-skinned hand working the valves on it as it played a scale, before slowly being pulled back out. I stood there, tears welling in my eyes from fear. I locked the door, finished getting ready, and after some time stepped into the hallway. No one was in the apartment. I grabbed my stuff and quickly got dressed, and went out to my car. I was shaking a bit. I think I was in shock to some degree. I decided to try to get through the day, see if it gets worse. I told myself maybe it was some sort of hallucination. Not exactly a good thing, but it was better than the alternative. Something was messing with me. I drove towards campus, trying to calm down. Dum-dum. I slammed on the brakes, my ears ringing from the blare of a trumpet from my back seat. Swung my head around to my empty back seat. A moment of relief coursed through me as another thunderous salvo from the trumpeter came from outside the driver's side window. I looked out to the end of a trumpet in my face from the other side of the glass. But besides the slow flutter of fingers on the trumpet's valves, with a dark tuxedo, I saw something else. The trumpeter's cheeks were extended past the outside of the flared end of the trumpet, far past what a human can do, sickeningly tight and distended, straining against the pressure from the air in the man's mouth. I could see it was a man now. His bald head was shiny, along with the rounded mounds that were his cheeks. I blinked, and he was gone. I stared blankly until it blasted its horn behind me, and I tentatively went back to driving. Class was just as bad as you would think. I made it through about 15 minutes before I had to leave. The trumpet player was not in the room, but he was playing somewhere in the building, his playing echoing around the old hall. I calmly left the classroom like I was going to the restroom, but then broke into a sprint outside the room. I had to leave. Run. Do something. I sprinted for a minute before realizing I was lost. I only really knew where my classroom was. The hall was an old building that not only was large, but maze-like. I was in a hallway. The lights dim. It was empty and I was sure that there were no classes in session in any room that radiated out from it. I tentatively stepped into it, trying to find an exit, when I heard the dreaded sound. Dum-dum. I turned, and he was there, standing in the corner that extended into the hallway I was standing in. I slowly walked backwards, and stopped, once again frozen in place by fright. I could see his eyes now, to giants, swollen orbs that were being pushed out of his skull, straining against his eye sockets to pop out like a cartoon characters when they see something shocking. I couldn't move, think, or even breathe. But suddenly, the trumpet blared into a long, loud note as he slid across the linoleum floor, still standing unmoving, just gliding as the trumpet sounded its note, like a battle cry during a cavalry charge. I snapped out of my shock and ran again. As I sprinted down the long hall, the roar of the trumpet on my heels. The lights in front of me started to go out, one by one. I was running into the dark. After a few seconds of the chase, all the lights were off, and the blaring ended. I stopped too, looking back to where the trumpeter was. I heard nothing. I craned my neck and turned my head, so my good ear was facing where the monstrous musician was before. Nothing. I sighed in relief. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, turning the flashlight on and on. I turned back around and nearly walked into the flared end of the trumpet, blue light reflecting off a pair of milky white eyes with giant red blood vessels, pupils darker than the space between stars in the night sky. It looked like they were going to pop out of his skull, swollen to tennis ball size, his trumpet blaring again. I ran the other way. Luckily I didn't drop my phone. I went to the student clinic. I told them I was seeing and hearing things. I was shaking and sobbing, nearly inconsolable, but the nurse who finally got to me told me it was anxiety. I was dumbstruck by the audacity. She explained it was a response to the stress a music grad student like me was under. I chuckled, but then I heard the trumpet somewhere in the building, and laughed. I felt nothing now. I walked out of the clinic. I walked to my car and left the school. The hysteria I felt was short-lived as dread filled me once again. I had gotten dozens of texts and calls from concerned friends and classmates asking about why I left the class and why I was screaming in the hallways. I do not remember screaming then, but I am not surprised. I just went to my apartment. As I walked into my bedroom, I saw my old trumpet still in its case. I grabbed it and threw it into the trash outside. A funeral song of just played in the background, likely from my house. I had no idea what the trumpeter wanted, what he was, or any idea why he chose me. I sat on my bed, spiraling, trumpets blasting around me. He was in the walls, under the bed, the closet, everywhere. More and more notes and scales blared about me. I slammed my hands to my ears and screamed, "Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!" as loud as I could. My voice growing hoarse, and the taste of copper permeating throughout it. The closet door opens, and the musician fucking slides out sideways. From halfway up the door horizontal to the floor in the same pose he always was in. I ran out of the room and into my bathroom, cowering in there again for the second time that day. Hours of trumpet and my ears stung and a migraine was splitting my skull. Screaming at him to stop did not do anything. I knew I had to do something. So I threw open the door and ran to the kitchen, Aegis theme playing as I did, unbearably loud. I grabbed a knife from the block on the counter and turned to find the musician. He stood in the end of the hallway, head tilted forward as if he were trying to see me better over the instrument. Eyes still bugging out in all directions inches off his face. Cheeks like an overstuffed chipmunk's. We locked eyes. He continued to play, and I dashed toward him and stabbed him in the stomach with an underhand motion. He did not stop. He did not even stutter his playing. The weapon stuck in him, and pulling at it did nothing. I stepped back empty-handed as the musician slowly looked down, back at me, and raised his hand, not working the valves, shaking his finger at me slowly in a mock disapproving way. He then grabbed the knife and pulled it out of his stomach, with no blood, not on the blade or the tux, as well as not even leaving a hole in the jacket. He dropped the knife to the floor and went back to his usual stance. A second later he disappeared. My apartment echoed, still with even louder, more fast and frantic music. No longer was it playing music. It was just a loud and sharp sound, designed to punish. Like if you put the mouthpiece of the trumpet to a truck's exhaust as it stuttered, creating jagged blasts of noise, each loud enough to stab at your eardrums. My mind felt like it was melting. I cried, screamed, laughed, cried every curse at the musician, cheered him and told him to play louder, and much more. I punched walls, tore assignments, broke my TV and mirror, but at some point the insane revelry ended, and I had fell asleep. However, I was woken up by the trumpeter, the dum-dum of his usual scale vibrating my bedroom. I was on my bed, no covers on. I went to sit up before realizing I could not move. Sleep paralysis. Of course, I thought, why not? I decided to close my eyes, still exhausted from my hysterical night previously, but the trumpet got louder and louder until I could feel air on my face. He was right there, bent over to play right in my face. It hurt so much. My ears were ringing, my head pounding, and the blaring vibrated my bones. But I knew he wanted me to look. I had to hold out, have some sort of victory against this demon, because that is what he had to be, a demon. But that demon won out after seemingly hours of blaring in my face. But it could have been minutes too. Time was being bent by this trumpeter that was terrorizing me. A black hole bending time around it. I opened my eyes. He was suspended in the air, right above me, still in his stance, floating trumpet facing me. Even in the dark of the room I could see his eyes bugged out, cheeks puffed out, straining and taut, his trumpet barely an inch away from my face, with his eyes equal to mine. I could not move. I could not scream. I stared into his face, too scared to close them in case he did anything while they were closed. We were like this until morning, where he suddenly disappeared. My laptop was still functional after my hysteria, although with a crack. I need to tell people what happened. This demon won't ever leave me alone. I can never play trumpet, my passion that I worked for over a decade to master even if it did. But he will not leave me alone. No matter what I will hear, and likely see him. I could not stand the music he made. It was non-stop now. A barrage of almost deafening music that went from normal as trumpet to a schizophrenic wail. So I decided to make it stop. I sharpened the pencils until they were razor sharp, stuck them into my ears, and pushed until the white-hot pain of my eardrums being punctured, paired with the sound of their destruction and the trumpeter's music, slightly lowered. I could not hear anything. But trumpet. I laughed. I can't escape him. Blood is freely running down my neck and shoulders, red and hot. As I write this, he is behind me, a hand on my shoulder. My kitchen knife sits on my desk. I do not know why he chose me. Why does he want to drive me insane? But I only know I cannot bear it. This is not a call for help. It is too late for that. But hopefully, if you ever see a trumpeter and his eyes are the size of tennis balls, and his music is supernaturally loud, just end it before it's too late. God help you if he finds you, because nothing else can or will. We moved across town when I was in middle school, from an apartment to a bigger place with a yard and, most importantly, opportunity and space on the inside to make our new house a home. I remember how it was. 2 weeks of moving and chaos. I felt it even as a kid. Just so much going on. So many phone calls. So much looking over documents to make sure that they were being written and read right, and shifting schedules to make them align. Mommy broke down into tears more than once, and honestly, and so did Dad. Then was the big day. The big move. And all of the movers. And then, at long last, it was over. I remember. We got Chick-fil-A for dinner that night, and I remember. Both Mommy and Dad were looking just lost. Like they were there, but they weren't there. If I'd been older and wittier, I'd have said that lights were on, but no one was home. At the time, I just offered them chicken nuggets and some of that weird special sauce. And they kind of looked at me, then at each other, and laughed. I remember Mommy. She was so pretty. Wavy yellow hair so long that it touched her waist. Teeny, short, skinny. And from my memories, and the pictures I've got, she wasn't exactly built like a kid. Not built like a kid at all. I remember, half the time, people thought she was my sister, not my mommy, and she ate up every bit of it. She'd lean in, kind of straightening her back, pushing herself out for all the world to see, flash them a big smile and a grin and wink, and tell them she was my mommy. She was such a good mommy. So pretty. I remember. It was that summer, so Dad was working a lot. Lots of long hours. Sometimes far from home. The days were long, but sometimes he didn't even get home until after the sun was down. He was constantly tired. Too tired to play. Too tired to even rest. If that makes sense. Always something on his mind about work. He didn't even have time to do half the projects that he promised Mommy he'd do. That's what led up to it. That's what caused it. Dad was going to be away for work for a long day. Up at 5. And back whenever he got back. I remember. I heard him and Mommy kiss, and then Mommy was up at M. She got me up, bright and early. Then we went out to the home improvement store to get the saw. I remember. It looked intimidating in a picture along, like a weapon more than a tool. And the box was huge. I couldn't budge it, and Mommy couldn't either. It took a nice man who worked at the store to get it into the car and then into the van. How we got it out to set it up, I don't even remember. But what I do remember is, if it looked intimidating on the box, when it got set up, it looked deadly. The blade was so sharp, like 100 tiny kitchen knives. And when Mommy told me how it worked when she tested it out, it made that high-pitched whine and then that roar, I bolted as if it was a beast about to eat me alive. Even when it stopped, it looked like a mouth opened wide, as if calling me in. Mommy laughed and just said to be careful, and sit still, and not talk or distract her or even move. It's safe, she said, if you're careful and respectful, and we gotta get the job done anyway for Dad's sake. So sit still, don't move, don't make any noise, and it'll all be okay. But what if no? Silly. Be a good boy. Sit still, don't move, don't make any noise. It'll all be okay. So I was a good boy. I sat still. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound as Mommy made the saw whine and roar and wear into life. Those 100 sharp kitchen knives, I couldn't even see them anymore. They were spinning so fast they looked like a disc. The blade was so sharp that it ate through the wood like it was paper, and I could see Mommy smiling and squinting, her blonde hair blown back by the blade. She looked like a warrior, or a goddess of some kind. She was so pretty and awesome and cool. And then, the wind changed, and Mommy's long blonde hair shifted and twisted, as if called to the blade. At first, nothing happened. I guess the teeth cut her hair like a scissor. But then there was more. There was a lot more. And it got trapped in the blade and pulled into the saw, and then Mommy got yanked forward. And she was so tiny, and so she was called to the blade, and then the screaming roar that I thought was going to eat me turned its appetite on her. It pulled her face first into the blade. She stopped herself with her arms. Kind of. But her face got cut from her forehead to her nose to her mouth, making her mouth open vertically, bright red and wet with blood. And then she got pulled farther, cutting into her jaw and her skull and her brain, almost bisected between the hemispheres, almost giving her a split personality. But some part of Mommy was still alive. Some part of her made her grab at the blade until it ate her fingers too. And then it gripped and it pulled, and then it just kept going. It cut Mommy apart from her head to her toes, and like a good little boy, I sat still. I didn't move. I didn't make so much as a peep as the saw ate my own Mommy alive right in front of my eyes. I don't really remember what happened next. The days and the months after that. The best I can piece together is, they said I was still in shock when Ad found me, still terrified and motionless, dumbstruck by what I'd seen. They must have asked me what had happened, and I must have told the truth. Most of it anyway. Except, Dad never believed me. Not really, I think. I think he knew even then that I was a little different. A little off. That when Mommy told me to sit and be quiet and to not move a muscle, I took it a little, too recklessly, and besides what I told them made sense. Mostly, it was kind of weird. Kind of a gross coincidence on top of everything. But, it could have happened like that. The blade caught Mommy's hair and chopped it up. Why would it stop there and not pull off her clothes? 2.